Why isn't Bitcoin's price higher? There's actually a number of factors that all converge around the same time that are keeping Bitcoin's price from being higher. The first is a lot of people, including me, underestimated the resistance that getting significantly above $100,000 would cause because of all the people who have been in Bitcoin a really long time who view $100,000 as just a really huge number. The kind of number that makes them do things like buy all of their kids' houses, go on a nice ski vacation, basically spend Bitcoin in a way that's at a level that they did not anticipate previously spending Bitcoin. And there are a bunch of people, some who have only held a few years, some who have held 5 to 7 years, some people who have held Bitcoin more than 10 years. And there is a massive rotation right now of those people selling Bitcoin to do whatever it is they want to do to improve the lives of themselves and their families. And in doing so, they are selling some Bitcoin, and that is putting sell pressure on the marketplace. Now, the amazing thing is all of that selling pressure is being lapped up almost immediately by Wall Street, big institutions, hedge funds, and all of the smart money who's buying all that Bitcoin. So the people who are not smart enough to hold on to that Bitcoin are selling it to people that are smart enough to hold on to that money. But that rotation is resulting in a significant amount of demand that would otherwise drive the price higher being offset by a significant amount of supply, new supply coming to the market of people who have sat on Bitcoin a long time. Now, you may be thinking, if there's a bunch of OGs selling Bitcoin, then why would I be buying it now? And the answer is because this happened at every nice big round price number before this. So if you go back and look, whether it's $1 or $10 or $100 or $1,000, or $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, you had the same dynamic in play. Now, I've only been involved with Bitcoin, so I've only experienced that at $10,000 and at $50,000. But if you go back and you track how long Bitcoin spent within 10% of every price level from $0 to $125,000, it spent a huge amount of time trying to significantly break past $10,000. There was something psychological about $10,000 that made long-term holders of Bitcoin think this is a huge number, and it just took a long time to exhaust that supply. Bitcoin spent way more time around $10,000, within 10% of $10,000, than any other price level from $0 to the market peak in 2021. So I actually looked at the entire time from the lowest price in 2018 to the highest price in 2021, which was the time period where it had to pass and sort of definitively hold above $10,000. And Bitcoin spent more time around $10,000 than any other price level, even though it spent, obviously the price went in that time period from, $4,000 to $69,000. It spent the most time trying to definitively clear $10,000. We had the same thing above $50,000. We spent 8 months with the price between $55,000 and $70,000 last year. And every time it tried to pull too far away from $50,000, the sell pressure would offset it until finally we broke through, and all of the people that were, had been planning to sell some Bitcoin at $50,000 were finally done. And the same thing will happen here. It's just instead of $10,000 or $50,000, we're talking about $100,000, and the same thing is happening. Every time the price starts going toward or dips below $100,000, it immediately gets bought up. But then when the price tries to pull too far away from $100,000, there's just too many people that view $100,000 as a really big number. And they're willing to part with some of their Bitcoin because that psychological big number of $100,000 is doing the exact same thing that the psychological level of $1,000 or $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 did. We will exhaust those sellers. It is only a matter of time. We absolutely will exhaust those sellers. And when we do, the demand pressure that is there, that is for all the reasons Bitcoin is amazing, that demand pressure will have no choice but to push the price higher. 1 second. Okay, so that's the number one reason Bitcoin's not going up faster is too much sell pressure right now due to the psychological resistance of getting definitively past $100,000. Okay, next, there's been this thing in Bitcoin forever called the 4-year cycle where you typically get 3 up years and 1 down year, 3 up years, 1 down year, 3 up years, 1 down year. And that's been due to the Bitcoin halving, which has much less effect now than it used to, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of people who still psychologically think that's going to happen, even though the majority of people, including me, think that was an anomaly related to Bitcoin's early history. That the halving is so small right now that it's just not material now to the future of Bitcoin. And that it's just, there's no reason for it to keep going through that cycle, especially when we're in a macroeconomic environment, meaning a big picture economic environment that is unbelievably favorable to Bitcoin. Okay, but because of that, because of the 3 up years, 1 down year, 3 up years, 1 down year, that pattern would predict that there would be a dip in 2026. And right now, there are a lot of people trying to get ahead of that dip, which I don't think is going to happen, but, and trying to sell in 2025 with the plan to buy back the Bitcoin in 2026, which is a stupid strategy. Don't do it. Almost everybody who tries gets burned. They always time it wrong. They always screw it up. Like, don't do it. It's just a bad strategy. Plus, I don't even think the 4-year cycle is even still in play. I think that was a relic of Bitcoin's early days when the supply and demand was heavily impacted by Bitcoin halvings, and that's just not the case anymore. The new supply issuance of Bitcoin is, less than 0.75% a year. And so who cares if that drops in half again in 2028? It's just where effectively all the Bitcoins have already been issued in the on the market, no matter what. It just doesn't matter anymore. But there's a bunch of Bitcoin that is being sold by people who are afraid that the 4-year cycle might still be in play, and they're not willing to live through the possibility of a downturn in 2026. Now, in my opinion, the downturn is what we're experiencing right now. We're experiencing it because people are artificially dumping Bitcoin for no good reason. But, as soon as it becomes clear that this pattern is not going to repeat, then they'll stop doing that. Now, historically, the last couple of cycles, it's been late October, early November that's happened. If you go way back to the early days of Bitcoin, it extended into the first half of December. Now, here we are. It is it's November 12th. So we are most of the way through that time span that if there was going to be a big epic dip, you would know it by now. But there's a ton of people who have sold Bitcoin that are selling Bitcoin right now, waiting to see, do we get to the end of November? Do we get to the middle of December? Is this pattern going to repeat itself, or can we trust that it's not going to repeat itself because it already hasn't repeated itself in the last week or two of October, because that's already over and we're not, the price is not 75,000 a coin. And we've already made it through the first half of November and the price is not cratered. Now, that doesn't mean we're not in a dip, but, a 17 or 20% dip doesn't count. People are talking about dips much bigger than that. If they're scared of a, 2026 epic dip, it would look, it would feel a lot worse than this little dip does. So there's a lot of people selling Bitcoin. So in addition to the sell pressure from all the people that, view 100,000 as a big number and they've been waiting for a long time to buy themselves nice things above $100,000, and we got to get all of that buying pressure, selling pressure out of the system, which is being offset nicely, very nicely with buy pressure. We also have to get past all these 4-year cycle people who have it in their heads that there's a 4-year cycle and that they're going to try to time it by selling now and buying later. It's a dumb thing to do. Don't do it. But again, if enough people think that might happen, you get extra sell pressure. Now, the marketplace is doing an incredible job of absorbing that extra sell pressure, but it's not doing a perfect job of absorbing that extra sell pressure. So here we are. It requires additional, there's got to be additional buy pressure to continue to offset that. Now, the reason the price, those are the two big reasons. OGs, or, I wouldn't even call somebody who's owned it 5 to 7 years an OG. I've owned Bitcoin for 7 or 8 years. That's not OG level, but anyway. But there's that, and then there's the 4-year cycle, and then there's a government shutdown, and then there's, lots of fear in the marketplace for a bunch of reasons, and that drags Bitcoin down with it, because even though Bitcoin's not a correlated asset to other things, when people freak out about one thing, they tend to freak out about other things. So you tend to get this herd mentality that is also affecting Bitcoin. So what is happening? So you have that sell pressure from OGs or quasi OGs or whatever. You got the sell pressure from the people who are worried about a 4-year cycle. Offsetting that is a bunch of smart money that's buying up all this Bitcoin because they think it's ridiculously on sale. So I am one of those people that is in the process of buying up this dip. So because of this dip, and because I think, like a lot of smart people, that the 4-year cycle is not a thing anymore, that Bitcoin's on sale, and if you're going to sell it to me cheap, eventually I will take it off your hands. I, earlier this week, shipped all of my gold and silver that I had back from 2017. It was not a huge amount, but it's enough that I'll end up with between 5% and 10% more Bitcoin. When all the dust settles, I'll have between 5 and 10% more Bitcoin. Now, had I known I could get that much more Bitcoin, I would have done this sooner. But I actually bought more gold and silver in 2017 than I remembered. So when I actually tallied it up, I owned a bit more than I thought. And of course, it's gone up in value since 2017. Not obviously nothing compared to Bitcoin, but still not nothing. So when you total the fact that I owned more than I thought, combined with the fact that it went up, it ends up being between 5% and 10% of the total value of the Bitcoin I have was stashed in gold and silver, buried in various places, and, all the crazy things you have to do to keep gold and silver secure, which is, a royal pain. But anyway, I shipped all of that to SD Bullion. S as in, SD as in Sam David. I don't know what it actually stands for, but I shipped all of that to SD Bullion earlier this week, and they are going to send me a check. And as soon as they send me a check, I am going to immediately, they're going to wire the money to either Coinbase or River, and I will immediately use 100% of the proceeds to buy Bitcoin. So while we're sitting here and people are being stupid and selling Bitcoin on sale, there are people like me who are frantically trying to buy up the Bitcoin on sale as much as I can, because in the long term, I think owning 5 or 10 additional percentage points of Bitcoin is going to be life-changing for me and for, my kids and everybody else. So I am not waiting. I am one of the people saying, thank you for the cheap Bitcoin. If you're going to be dumb enough to sell me cheap Bitcoin, I will eventually take it off your hands. Now, the entire process from realizing I want to sell a bunch of gold and silver to actually doing it, that entire process is taking like 2 weeks, because it was like last week that I decided I was going to do it. Then I didn't have a chance to actually ship it, I think, till Friday. They didn't actually get it until like Monday or Tuesday. It's Wednesday now. They're going to try to send me the wire transfer by Friday, but it's probably going to be Monday because the traditional financial system sucks. Anyway, so the short take is I'm going to buy up some more Bitcoin. A relatively substantial amount of additional Bitcoin is going to be taken off the market by me. So the reason the price is not lower is there's a bunch of people like me that are out there buying up all this cheap Bitcoin, which is why the price has held up above $100,000. And there's a bunch of people like me that are trying to get liquidity as fast as possible, but they can't. So from my first decision of I want more Bitcoin and I have an asset I'm willing to trade for it, some old, buried gold and silver, from that decision point until now is like a 2-week process. So would I have pulled that trigger a lot sooner? Yeah. By the time I actually buy the additional gold and silver, it will have been about 2 weeks since I wanted to buy the gold and silver. It just took that long to get liquidity to buy the Bitcoin. It just took that long to get the liquidity on the gold and silver to actually do it. So there's a bunch of people out there doing the exact same thing I'm doing. There's people out there that are selling real estate, trying to get liquidity to buy more Bitcoin. There's people out there trying to find ways of liquidating stock and bond portfolios. There's people out there, precious metals, just like me. Like, a bunch of people are trying to get liquidity to buy cheap Bitcoin right now. Now, will they be successful in buying up all this Bitcoin before it goes up? Hopefully, because I'd rather have cheap Bitcoin. Or will they not bring enough cavalry to buy enough Bitcoin fast enough to keep it from dipping some more? I don't know, but if it dips some more, a whole new group of people steps up to the plate and says, wow, I couldn't quite stomach $100,000 Bitcoin, but $95,000 Bitcoin I'll take all day. And so you get a whole new wave of buying pressure. Now, again, it's all supply and demand. I am more bullish on Bitcoin, I think, than I've ever been right now. I mean, everything is going in Bitcoin's favor right now. You've got literally yesterday, Square, the payment processing company run by Jack Dorsey, who founded Twitter and sold it to Elon Musk. They made the ability for 4 million merchants that use Square payment terminals to accept Bitcoin natively on the Bitcoin network yesterday. Now, there's a whole process the merchant has to go through to turn it on, but as of yesterday, they can start that process. So you're in the process of having a ton of merchants come online. The bill to clarify the regulatory framework for all digital assets is on track in Washington, D.C. And now that the government shutdown is over, that bill is like one of the top priorities in Washington, D.C. That is all on track. You've got Charles Schwab saying they're introducing cryptocurrency trading on their platform in 2026. You got the Federal Reserve saying they're stopping asset purchases on December 1st, meaning instead of pulling any U.S. dollars out of the system, they are going to entirely be pushing U.S. dollars into the system, just printing money with no offsetting asset sales to pull some money out of the economy. Everything, I mean, we're on track for having interest rates dropped again by another 1/4 percentage point by the Federal Reserve. You got $7.5 trillion in money market funds sitting on the sidelines getting paid 4% interest to do nothing. That interest rate is now dropping to 3.75, then to 3.5. It's going to keep dropping, and that money's going to go hunting for a place that is a better place to live than a place you can't get good interest rates. So all of that is happening. It's all happening right now. There is nothing that would lead me to believe that now is not an optimal environment for Bitcoin to absolutely spread its wings and do amazing things. So why is that not reflected in the price right now? Well, because you got too many people who have held Bitcoin too long, sitting on too much of a profit, who $100,000 just feels like a big number. And we're going to look back on this, and it's the same thing's going to happen at 250,000 a coin, and then it's going to happen at 500,000 a coin, and it's going to be a royal bear at $1 million a coin, because at $1 million per coin, a bunch of you are going to be selling Bitcoin to buy nice things for you and your family. And you're just going to do it, and people are going to complain that the price is stuck between 1 million and 1.1 or 1.2 million. Somewhere between $1 million and 1.2 million a coin, the price is going to be stuck forever. And everybody's going to complain that Bitcoin won't go up. And it's going to be because people like you are sitting on a 10x multiple of the value that you invested in Bitcoin. And you're going to be doing nice things. And that's fine. That's the purpose of money, to help you improve the lives of yourself and your family, to support charitable giving, to help the poor and oppressed, like all of the things. You're going to be doing all of that, and it's going to result in the price of Bitcoin having a hard time getting out of that range from $1 million to $1.2 million, just like it's having a hard time of getting out of that range from 100,000 to 1,000, 120,000. 120,000 and 100,000 is exactly the same percentage gain as $1 million to $1.2 million. Same thing's going to happen. Same thing happened between $10,000 and $12,000. It's just going to keep happening. So Bitcoin, the setup right now is as bullish as it could possibly be. We just have to exhaust the sellers that are, busy buying themselves and their families nice things, which is fine. We have to exhaust the people that think there's a 4-year cycle. And as soon as they realize there isn't a 4-year cycle coming, they're going to flood money back into Bitcoin because they're not going to want to miss the next big price run. But right now, they're sitting on the sidelines. They're selling and sitting on the sidelines like an idiot. And all of them are going to come herding back in because they're all herd mentality people. They're all going to come herding back in as soon as it's clear there's not going to be a huge price dip. So I think Bitcoin's in a great place. I am personally buying between 5% and 10% more Bitcoin than I own right now the moment I get a wire transfer from SD Bullion for this gold and silver. And of course, that Bitcoin will immediately go to cold storage out of the hands of hackers and scammers. I recommend Bitkey, bitkey.world, bitkey.world. That is the best place to keep your Bitcoin. And if you have a lot of Bitcoin, like more than $50,000 of Bitcoin, I recommend you keep that at a safe deposit box at your bank rather than at your house if you have more than $50,000 stored on that little device. But anyway, I can't help but think now is a fantastic time to hold, to buy, to be bullish about Bitcoin. It's just a temporary price dip. Who cares? So what? Buy more Bitcoin. It's literally that simple. So hopefully this helps. Ask me any questions. I am bullish about Bitcoin, bullish enough that I am dumping gold and silver to get as much Bitcoin as I possibly can right now, hopefully before Friday. They messaged me, SD Bullion messaged me this morning and was like, we will try to get you the wire transfer before Friday. So we're going to find out. Hopefully it'll be before Friday. Maybe it won't. But I'm going to buy between 5% and 10% more Bitcoin than I already own as soon as that wire transfer comes in from SD Bullion. And at that point, I already own 0 gold and silver. So as of, I guess Monday of this week, I own 0 gold and silver. So anyway, I just don't have the US dollar cash to buy the Bitcoin. And I asked them if they could send me Bitcoin instead of US dollars. And because they are a gold and silver dealer, they are not in the mood to help promote the adoption of Bitcoin, which will ultimately demonetize gold and silver. So they said, no, it's got to be a wire transfer. So I'm waiting. But the moment it hits, I will buy Bitcoin regardless of the price. And I will post it on Facebook that I bought, and I will post what price I got. So have a great day, everyone. I am here to serve. Great time to own Bitcoin. Great time to buy more Bitcoin. I'm buying more Bitcoin. If I could buy more Bitcoin than I'm already buying, I would. I'm already at 100%. Literally, I have every single penny in Bitcoin that I could possibly have in Bitcoin, except the wire transfer from SD Bullion, which is going to put more Bitcoin on my balance sheet. It is a great time to own and hold Bitcoin. And I just can't imagine a setup that is more perfect for Bitcoin. And that will be reflected in the price. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time and patience, like all investing.